Welcome everyone to Liberal Agencies Television. I hope this video finds you well in your location across the globe. We just want to take this opportunity to review and reflect on some of the experiences that we've learned over this period of the COVID-19 and still continue to experience, because it has not been wiped. It is still with us and still continue mutating to other variants. Coronavirus disease was first identified or noticed in the city of Wuhan in China. And before people could come to terms or understand this disease, it already was spreading and had spread to every corner of every nation across the globe. Every country, before they could come to terms and start maybe even researching, they already had now started reporting cases. Usually, the COVID-19 is spread by, or when people breathe air that is contaminated by droplets and small airborne particles containing the virus. It's also transmitted by maybe coming into contact with surfaces that have been already contaminated by the virus, or maybe by the fluids that is coming from the infected person, maybe from the mouth, maybe eyes, nose, the fluids that may come from these places. If you get into contact with these kind of things, then you are exposed. And that is how people began spreading this virus. And before we could know it, the whole world, every corner had already had started now reporting cases of the same. It spread very quickly that by March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization declared the coronavirus disease a pandemic. So today, we just want to take this opportunity to see some of the lessons we've learned and some of the experiences we've had. Some of them are good, some of them are very bad experiences. And before we now set in, I just want to allow our new viewers, all the guys and the people who have just bumped into this channel today, to take an opportunity and press the subscription button, and also press the notification bell so that anytime we produce a video, you'll always get notified automatically. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, we have had some very bad experiences with this disease. Like either disease, it results to death. And in the case of COVID-19, it usually will take somebody, it will take somebody's life in a very short notice. When it finds that your system maybe was vulnerable, maybe you are suffering from other diseases. The world has suffered the largest number of deaths in a very small period because of one disease. By 15th of February 2022, the World Health Organization was already reporting that the number of deaths accumulated across the globe was standing at 5.8 million. You can imagine, just in a period of 2 years, this pandemic had already now claimed lives of over 5.8 million people across the country, across the globe, from all countries. And this is a very bad experience that we have had, and we send our condolences to the families that have been affected and friends. Another sad thing that has been caused by this pandemic is the economic status that it has, how it has affected the world. A lot of people lost jobs, and they had to now go home and start doing other things. And all the people who used to depend on them had to now start undergoing some very hard conditions. Also, in terms of businesses, even businesses, the people who are running some businesses here and there have suffered a great deal. From entertainment joints, hotel industries, tourism, all these were affected. In fact, even a lot of governments had to announce some pay cuts to their employees that you had to take. It's like almost a compulsory thing now, because so that you could still be kept in that job. That's another very sad or bad experience that we've gone through during this period of the coronavirus disease. Also, the learners or schools, learning across the world was affected, a very, very big deal. Where in most countries, or almost all the countries, they had to even close all the learning institutions so that the pupils and the students can go home and try to keep away from mingling in large groups. And it has really cost a lot of the students, because that period, losing a whole year, it has been very difficult to cover. And the learners have not recovered from that problem. Another thing also that we've learned, or that we've experienced, that it's not a very good experience, is that people have now become trust levels have become low, have become low so much that nowadays you cannot just embrace somebody. You know, when you meet somebody, you're just careful. You just maybe look for other ways of greeting, maybe through just waving like this. You know, as opposed to previously when you meet a friend, you just embrace them. So trust levels have come down because of this pandemic. These are just to mention a few, some of the bad experiences that the world have learned or have gone through during this period of the coronavirus disease. Also, there are some very positive, I can say, lessons that this pandemic has taught us. And you also just want to take a look at them. Like, number one, technology. This pandemic has really pushed the world to embrace technology so much. You know, we've seen so many institutions embrace technology, and we've learned that now there are so many things that we used to maybe ignore, and they are possible. They can be done through technology. Like learning, we've seen even people now start embracing things like online learning, e-learning. You find that a class is organized, the lecturer is there online, and the students are following. And these are things that it has worked very well, and has been proven that it can really achieve great heights. People can really embrace this and achieve great heights. Also, jobs. Previously, people used to flock offices. Everybody in their desk, the offices are crowded. But nowadays, you've seen that people now are embracing online jobs or working through online means. You are maybe at home or some secluded place, but you are still able to do your job or your duties online. And it's been working very well. And they're delivering just the same way they could deliver while in the office, without necessarily having to now jam the office. And also there's been a lot of innovations, you know, around technologies to see how things can work without having to gather together. Like we've seen even the courts embrace this technology now of trying to do their sessions online, and so on and so forth. That is one thing that this pandemic has brought up, and there's no going back. People just have to keep it and better it now going forward. Another thing that people have learned is that people must embrace the culture of saving. People, you have to sacrifice and be putting something on the side for maybe future use, because you don't know what tomorrow brings. You know, this pandemic, when it came, it caught a lot of people unawares. And almost everybody was at some point in a position where they had to now come to a lower level of where they were living, because you've already suffered some pay cut, so maybe you have even lost maybe some job. You know, there are a lot of people who are affected with this pandemic, and a lot of people lost jobs. And most are whom did not have even savings that they can run to and maybe start forging forward. So a lot of people really experience very, very hard times. And what we have learned now is that when there's something small that can be coming your way in terms of earning, you have to put something on the side, because what tomorrow brings, you do not know. That is one lesson also that the COVID-19 has taught us. And another thing is the lifestyle that you live, you know. Your lifestyle is your health. It has become now more clear during this period of coronavirus pandemic. If you're just used to relaxing, resting, you don't want to do some maybe exercise, you are one of the people who are said to now be vulnerable when you catch this virus, you know. But the people who will do maybe exercise frequently, who are just in a position now to shed this virus very quickly. You saw even all these maybe sportsmen and sportswomen. Most of them who caught this disease did not succumb. They shed it off because when the virus came, it found that their bodies were fit. They were used to maybe exercising regularly. And so they did not struggle so much with this pandemic. So the lifestyle that people live, there are lessons that we've learned that we need to take a lifestyle of fitness. When you are fit, you shed off these diseases very fast. Even a lot of players, football players and coaches even, some coaches you find that they are very elderly or advanced in age. And the elderly were said to be some of the most vulnerable. But for these aged coaches, none of them we didn't hear of any of them who succumbed. Meaning that the fitness of the body worked for them in this case. So it means that people should embrace activities that keep their bodies fit. At least you do some exercise every now and then. Another area that this pandemic taught us is to try to obtain some health insurance. This is another area that we've really realized that is very important. This pandemic, this disease, when it comes to you and it finds you that now you have to now start paying for everything, it was too expensive to manage. Too expensive. Like the Senator for Busia, Honorable Amos Wako, after he had gone through the experience, now he came out and speak about it, and he was explaining to the country, trying to sensitize the nation to take caution of this disease. He was saying that if it was not that he had an insurance that was covering this disease, the amount of money that he was expected to pay, an ordinary person cannot manage. So he gave a call to the nation that residents should ensure that they find ways of obtaining health insurance. that can help you cover some of these expenses. And this is not for COVID alone. Even other diseases, when they come to you and they find you that you are just not prepared, you are going now to start paying all these things from your pockets, it can always have a toll of you on your resources. So that's another lesson that we learned from the COVID-19. You know. Also, to the authorities or the governments across the world, make sure that your countries usually have the best facilities. This is a lesson that I hope all governments have learned across the globe. You know, it reached a point where even traveling was not possible. Airlines had already parked, countries have banned maybe aircraft from landing, not travel. So it is you and yourself, wherever you are, you have to deal with that situation, wherever it finds you. You know? And if it's found that your country, you do not have facilities, you are in a very bad place. So the lesson is to the authorities that always ensure that you equip your countries with the best possible equipment that you can obtain, so that the people of the country can always get the best locally, not necessarily relying on maybe seeking health services to other countries. This pandemic you are dealing with it from wherever you are, even if you have money. There are people who even had a lot of money, but when this disease came now, there's nothing you could do with your money. You can't fly, you can't go anywhere, but you have a lot of money. You just have to deal with it the way you are, wherever you are. So it's a lesson to the authorities. Do your best to invest in the health system so that we can always be prepared for such maybe eventualities when they occur. And another thing, maybe just to now wind up, the population of these countries, citizens of these countries, we've also learned that indeed obeying the authorities can usually help you escape some of these things. You know, when orders were given, when now this virus just came and people were still not understanding what's happening, scientists and even the Minister of Health came up and started now sensitizing the citizens. And you'll find that some citizens were taking things just for granted. They were being told, kindly just cover your mouth using maybe face masks. Just take some cloth and cover your mouth and nose, so that when somebody is speaking near you, some of these particles cannot reach you. A lot of people are ignoring. They were told, please try to avoid where there's a lot of crowds, gatherings. You know, a lot of people ignored. But most of these people who ignored these things, they ended up catching this virus. You know, they ended up catching this virus and learning the very hard way. You know, but if you just obey these orders when they are given, you always find that you don't fall a victim of these things by just trying to escape and obeying these simple rules. That's also a lesson that when a call has been given out by the authorities and the scientists and the experts, usually just try to obey those orders or those directives. And finally now, as I conclude, this coronavirus has also taught us that we should value our families very much. Family members. When you are blessed with a family, you must always value these families. I know also there are a lot of friends that come in and become part of the family when they are required, and they are also part of the families. But if God has blessed you with the natural family, these are the people who will even now put their lives online when somebody, one of their own, is in a critical condition. Like we saw some cases where a family member has caught COVID. Everybody ran away, because this person is not supposed to get into contact with anybody. But the family members, some of them will still just come and provide this person with maybe some of the things, that is maybe food, water. They are the last people who will remain with you up to the last minute. And in some cases even, you find that family members ended up affecting or infecting each other. And in some cases, some very sad cases where we find that the family has been wiped away. Like we saw some news, we find that in a period of 3 weeks, some families were wiped, because one of them caught COVID, and then they are still trying to help him, and they are also catching the virus like that. And in just a period of a short while, the entire family caught COVID and they were wiped away. Family are the ones who will always stand by you at your very most hour of need, or your very most hard time. Even if you have friends, they are also important, and a lot of them also will always be there. But the first people are always your family. So that's also a lesson that we've learned. And it's not only COVID, even other diseases we have seen. We have always seen that family members are the ones who usually help this person when they are sick. Any diseases, we have seen even in this local hospital, when you go there, you always find that maybe the husband is sick. The wife is always the one providing everything, even cleaning the sick person, feeding the sick person. You send them everywhere. So that is also a lesson we've learned, that family members, we need to keep some very close relationships. And finally, lastly, as I conclude, people should learn at least several skills. People should learn at least several. Don't just depend on one thing that maybe you've now studied a certain thing, and then you now stick only to that. Try also to be, when you find an opportunity, to learn a certain skill also extra, as different from what you are doing. And if you can learn even 3 skills or 4 skills, these skills can always help you when maybe one of your skill is not marketable at some point. Some of these cases of job losses during COVID, uh, a lot of people who did not have an extra skill found that they were in a very hard position, because maybe the kind of job you are doing now you have closed because maybe there's no business, there's no customers and everything, like the hotel industry, the entertainment industry. This was the most hit sector. So all the people who are working in this hospitality industry, almost 80% or 90% lost their jobs. You have to go home and now start thinking of something else again. So people who did not have maybe an extra skill of what they can do really went through a very hard situation. Like even like a friend of mine who was teaching in a private school. You know, when the school learning institution were closed now and they went home, they were hardly getting any coin from the schools. I mean, usually mostly these are teachers who are teaching in private schools. When the schools were closed, they hardly were receiving any money from their employers, because the employers were saying now that students are at home, they don't have any money, they will not pay you until schools reopen. But at least this friend of mine I'm referring to, he had a certain skill. And when now they were at home and there was no income at all coming, he was able to now again push this other skill and see how he can now start getting a few, livelihood from this other skill. You know? And he managed like that. But those who did not have an extra skill really suffered. So those are some of the lessons. Just to mention a few. I know people have had several and different experiences, and the list could be very long. So for now, I just want to leave you with that, as we still continue to be very cautious, because COVID-19 has not been wiped. It is still there, and it still continue coming with different variants that are even more harmful. You know, if you have not been vaccinated, kindly go and receive your vaccination when the doses are available. It is very sad that the government have tried and they have sourced all these doses so that the population can be vaccinated, and people are just resting in their homes, and are not going to be charged for this vaccination. This is the only way that you can also help the government from trying to keep the country safe. Some people are already going for the third dose, called the booster. They've already taken the first dose, second dose, and they're now going for the booster now. And found that a person who has reached that level, he is in a very good position. He can hardly suffer from this disease. Even if he catches this disease, this virus, it cannot take him to some very severe stages. It will just be managed very fast, because your body has already developed some immuneness against this virus. So to all the people who have not gone to receive their vaccines, take this opportunity when they are still available. Take your dose, second dose, and if you can get a booster, that will be very good. for your own safety and for the safety of your the people you mingle with. As we know, the world is not safe until everybody is safe. This virus was first detected in one city in China. And in a very short while, it was just all found on 3 people. But in a very short while now, look at how it affected the whole world. And I just mentioned that over 5 million people have already died. The world is too small. And until everybody is safe, nobody can say they are safe. And one person who is avoiding or neglecting this opportunity to go and maybe get a dose can be the only cause again for this disease now to again go viral again. Because if you started somewhere like in China and you saw the way it spread over the world, it means you can ignore it, and when it comes to you, maybe with a different variant now again, it can ignite the spread and it goes viral again to affect the people again. We don't want to go back to this limits that we have come from. So up to that point, I just want to thank everybody. Kindly take your time, a minute, and subscribe, and also give this video a like. Thank you, thank you, thank you. God's blessing.